And the last few sessions we've been in the prophecy of Daniel. We've had a look at a number of things, and I'm resisting the temptation to go over what we've done, because that would be a waste of time, really. If you weren't here, you missed out, and that's that. But we're moving on tonight into chapter 11. And before we do, rather than have a reading, if I might just skim over some of the key verses here in chapters 10 and 11. Chapter 10 is really the introduction to this whole thing. It provides the context to chapter 11. We're not going to do chapter 10 in any great length, but I thought it's worthwhile just starting out with a little bit of this context. Chapter 10 of Daniel. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, and that's important, it's an important date. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a revelation was given to Daniel, who was called Belteshazzar, that's his Babylonian name. Its message was true, and it concerned a great war. The understanding of the message came to him in a vision. At that time, I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I want you to think about what it means to receive the revelation of God directly. That's why in my prayer I say I'm going to be thankful for what these prophets put up with, all of them. They went through shocking things, really, terrible traumas, to receive the word of God and to try to then have to deal with it. At the time I, Daniel, mourned for 3 weeks. I ate no choice food, no meat or wine touched my lips, and I used no lotions at all until the 3 weeks were over. On the 24th day of the 1st month, as I was standing on the bank of the great river, the Tigris, I looked up, and there before me was a man dressed in linen, with a belt of the finest gold round his waist, and his body was like chrysolite, his face like lightning, etc. It's a terrible, terrible sight. And verse 7, I, Daniel, was the only one who saw the vision. The men with me did not see it, but such terror overwhelmed them that they fled and hid themselves. It reminds me of Paul, on the road to Damascus in Acts 9. No one else, Paul heard the voice. They all saw the light and fell down. They all fell down, of course. Verse 8, so I was left alone, gazing at the great vision. I had no strength left. My face turned deathly pale, and I was helpless. Helpless. Note that. Then I heard him speaking, and as I listened to him, I fell into a deep sleep, my face to the ground. And a hand touched me and set me trembling on my hands and knees. He said, Daniel, you are highly esteemed. What a wonderful thing to be said by the mighty angel. Consider carefully the words I am about to speak to you, and stand up, for I have now been sent to you. And when he said this to me, I stood up, trembling. Then he said, do not be afraid, Daniel. Since the first day that you set your mind to gain understanding and to humble yourself before your God, your words were heard, and I have come in response to them. But the prince of the Persian kingdom resisted me 21 days, and at this point you think, look, let's not get into this. It's, as I said to the South people this morning, South Adelaide, it's too scary. Don't bother with all this detail, it's just context. Verse 14, now I have come to explain to you what will happen to your people in the future. For the vision concerns a time yet to come. That's an important verse, because all of this is about to be revealed in the next chapter. Verse 15, while he was saying this to me, I bowed my face toward the ground and was speechless. And then the one who looked like a man touched my lips, and I opened my mouth and began to speak. And I said to the one standing before me, I am overcome with anguish because of the vision, my Lord, and I am helpless. How can I, your servant, talk with you, my Lord? My strength is gone, and I can hardly breathe. Again, the one who looked like a man touched me and gave me strength. Do not be afraid, O man highly esteemed, he said. Peace. Be strong now, be strong. And he spoke to me. When he spoke to me, I was strengthened and said, speak, my Lord, since you have given me strength. And he did. And we go to chapter 11, verse 2, and the vision begins. Now then, I will tell you the truth, says the angel. And here's Daniel having to take all this in. I'm not going to read all of this, but let me just give you the gist of this and sort of what it's about. Verse 2, because this chapter is a very famous prophecy. Very puzzling one, as all the things in Daniel are. Verse 2, now then, I tell you the truth. 3 more kings will appear in Persia, and then a 4th. He will be far richer than all the others. And when he has gained power by his wealth, he will stir up everyone against the kingdom of Greece. And then a mighty king will appear who will rule with great power and do as he pleases. And after he has appeared, his empire will be broken up and parcelled out toward the 4 winds of the heavens. It will not go to his descendants, nor will it have the power he exercised, because his empire will be uprooted and given to others. And the king of the south will become strong, but one of his commanders will become even stronger than he and will rule his kingdom with great power, and after some years they will become allies. The daughter of the king of the south will go to the king of the north to make an alliance. And so it goes on. And the rest of the chapter, most of it, is a narrative about what happens between the king of the north and the king of the south, whoever they are. We're going to come to that in a moment, because this is one of the classic Bible examples of what we call continuous historic prophecy. It's quite clearly continuous historic. There's a revelation of the history that was going to come over the next 200 years as far as the Jews were concerned. And it carries on like this about the king of the north and the king of the south and what they do. And as we'll see shortly, the details are just so accurate historically as to what happened over the next 250 years that many critics of the Bible have actually said, well, this couldn't be prophecy, it's got to be written after the event. Couldn't be that accurate. And literally that's one of the great criticisms of these. I mean, it couldn't be Daniel. I mean, he couldn't have got it that right, because it wasn't Daniel that was being actually given to him. And then we come down to the critical verses that we're going to be looking at in particular in the latter part of tonight, and that's from about verse 36. But if we just read well, from verse 36, the king, and it's not specified here who the king is. This could be king of the north, king of the south, or the king of the whoever. We don't know. The prophecy doesn't say, and this is one of the strange twists in this prophecy, and why this prophecy has become so famous, really. Verse 36, the king will do as he pleases. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, and will say unheard of things against the God of gods. It's already beginning to sound like that rotten little horn we found in Daniel 7 and Daniel 8, who was a boastful horn and spoke against God and did all sorts of nasty, beginning to sound like the little horn. And he will be successful until the time of wrath is completed, for what has been determined must take place. He will show no regard for the gods of his fathers or the one desired by women, whatever that means, nor will he regard any god, but will exalt himself above them all. Instead of them he will honour a god of fortresses, a god unknown to his fathers he will honour with gold and silver, and so it goes on. And then at verse 40, it says at the time of the end, and that's where all of us get excited and say, my gosh, I wonder if that's now, time of the end, last day stuff. At the time of the end, the king of the south, there's still a king of the south involved, will engage the king in battle, and the king of the north will storm out against him with chariots and cavalry and a great fleet of ships, and he will invade many countries and sweep through them like a flood. He will also invade the beautiful land, the holy land, the promised land. Many countries will fall, but Edom, Moab, and the leaders of Ammon, which is basically all modern day Jordan, Amman, capital of Jordan, and so on, all in that area, will be delivered from his hand. He will extend his power over many countries. Egypt will not escape. He will gain control over the treasures of gold and silver and all the riches of Egypt, with the Libyans and Ethiopians in submission. But reports from the east and the north will alarm him, and he will set out in a great rage to destroy and annihilate many. He will pitch his royal tents between the seas at the beautiful holy mountain, yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. But the prophecy doesn't actually finish there. It goes on into the early part of chapter 12, which we won't be able to have a look at tonight. But just note that chapter 12 continues. At that time, Michael, whoever Michael is, the great prince who protects your people, will arise. And there will be a time of distress or trouble such as not happened from the beginning of nations until then. This sounds like the time of Jacob's trouble from Jeremiah chapter 30, doesn't it? But at that time your people, everyone whose name is found written in the book, will be delivered. Multitudes who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, others to shame and everlasting contempt. And those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the heavens, and those who lead many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. But you, Daniel, close up and seal the words of the scroll until the time of the end. Many will go here and there to increase knowledge. And Daniel then goes on, how long is this going to take? And he's told a little bit about that, and that's what we're going to look at, God willing, next time as well. But I just wanted you to note here the general gist of this prophecy. The context is in chapter 10. It's then in chapter 11 all about this dialogue between, or this narrative between, about the king of the south, king of the north, and then there's this other king who comes into it towards the end of chapter 11 and does some interesting things at the time of the end. Sounds like the little horn and whatever. And then clearly in the beginning of chapter 12, we're right there. We're at the resurrection and judgment and the time of trouble for Israel, and it's all one. So we do know that this prophecy, whatever we make of